The moment Marcus Reynolds pushed the thick manila folder across the glass conference table in his penthouse office overlooking the glittering Manhattan skyline, Tyler Brooks felt his heart drop into his stomach. "This is our chance to build the family we've dreamed of, Tyler. Sign it, and nothing can stand in our way." Marcus said, his voice calm, but his dark eyes filled with the quiet desperation of a man who had everything money could buy except the one thing that truly mattered. Tyler stared at the neatly typed pages, the words surrogacy agreement bold at the top, and for a split second the luxurious room felt too small, the city lights outside too bright against the weight of what Marcus was asking. They had been together 3 years, two of them living in this sprawling apartment that smelled of fresh espresso and expensive leather, yet this contract made everything feel suddenly fragile, like their love was being weighed on a scale only Marcus could afford. Marcus leaned back in his chair, the billionaire tech CEO whose face had graced Forbes covers more times than Tyler could count, and ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair. At 42, he still carried the sharp jaw and broad shoulders that had first caught Tyler's eye at a charity gala. But tonight, there was a new vulnerability in the way his fingers tapped the table. "I know it sounds clinical," he continued, "but the surrogate is already screened, the egg donor matched, and my lawyers made sure every detail protects us both. You'll be listed as co-parent from day one. No more wondering if the world will ever see us as real." Tyler swallowed hard, his own 28 years feeling suddenly young and unprepared. He was just a freelance writer scraping by on passion projects, the kind of guy who still got nervous ordering coffee in fancy cafes, while Marcus moved through boardrooms like he owned the air itself. Yet here they were, two gay men in New York City daring to want more than stolen weekends and whisper promises. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight as Tyler flipped through the pages, each clause spelling out medical appointments, financial safeguards, even custody arrangements if the worst happened. Marcus had thought of everything, the way he always did, but Tyler's mind raced with questions he couldn't voice yet. Questions about what it meant to raise a child when his own Texas family had stopped speaking to him the day he came out at 19. "Give me tonight," Tyler finally said, closing the folder. Marcus nodded, reaching across to squeeze his hand, the touch warm and steady like always. By morning, Tyler had signed, the ink still wet when Marcus pulled him into a tight embrace that smelled of cedar cologne and quiet hope. The process began immediately. Clinic visits, paperwork mountains, late-night talks about names and nursery colors that made their apartment feel alive for the first time in months. Weeks blurred into a rhythm of hope and quiet fear. The surrogate, a warm-hearted teacher named Sarah from New Jersey, met them over coffee and instantly put Tyler at ease with her easy laugh and stories about her own kids. Marcus handled the legal side with his usual efficiency, wiring funds and scheduling scans. But Tyler noticed the way his partner's shoulders tightened whenever they passed families in Central Park. "We're doing this, right?" Marcus would murmur, kissing Tyler's temple under the trees. Yet Tyler lay awake some nights wondering if their love was strong enough to shield a child from the stares they already got on the subway. Friends threw a small celebration when the pregnancy test came back positive, toasts raised in their sunlit living room. But Tyler caught the flicker of doubt in Marcus's eyes when one guest joked about gay dads taking over Manhattan. The first ultrasound arrived like a quiet miracle, the tiny heartbeat filling the exam room with sound that made Tyler's chest ache with a love he hadn't known he possessed. Marcus gripped his hand so tightly it hurt, whispering, "That's ours," and for the first time Tyler believed the contract might have been the best decision of their lives. The second trimester brought the kind of ordinary days Tyler had always craved. Mornings where Marcus made avocado toast before heading to the office, and evenings when they pored over baby-name books on the couch. Sarah's belly rounded gently under loose sweaters, and the three of them fell into a comfortable routine of texts and check-ins that felt almost like family already. Yet cracks began to show the weekend Marcus's parents flew in from Boston for what was supposed to be a casual dinner. His father, a retired hedge fund titan with steel gray hair and an even harder stare, barely touched his salmon before launching into the same speech Tyler had heard whispered at holiday parties. "A child needs stability, Marcus, not some experiment in social progress." The words landed like stones in the elegant dining room, silverware clinking awkwardly as Tyler forced a smile and excused himself to the kitchen. Marcus followed minutes later, closing the door softly behind him. "He'll come around," he promised, pulling Tyler close, but the tension in his arms told a different story. Tyler nodded against his chest, inhaling the familiar scent of his cologne, yet inside he felt the old familiar shame rising. The same shame that had driven him from Texas years ago. That night, they argued quietly in bed, voices low so the guests wouldn't hear. "You knew what your family was like when you asked me to sign," Tyler said, voice cracking. Marcus sighed, tracing circles on Tyler's back. "I thought love would be enough this time." The next morning, the elder Reynolds left without breakfast, leaving behind a check for "whatever you need" that Marcus tore up in silence. Tyler watched the pieces flutter into the trash and wondered how many more sacrifices their chosen family would demand. Work brought its own pressures. Tyler's latest article on queer parenting for an online magazine went viral, comments flooding in, some supportive, others vicious enough that he closed the laptop and stared out the window at the Hudson River for an hour. Marcus came home early that day, loosening his tie as he listened to Tyler read the worst messages aloud. "We don't owe them explanations," Marcus said firmly, but Tyler saw the flicker of doubt cross his partner's face, the same doubt that had kept Marcus closeted until his late 20s. Sarah's next appointment brought good news. The baby was healthy, measuring right on track, yet Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that every milestone came with invisible strings. Friend from his writing group threw a gender-neutral baby shower in a Brooklyn loft, balloons in soft yellows and greens, but one guest pulled Tyler aside to ask if he was sure about raising a child in this political climate. The question lingered like smoke, following him home where Marcus waited with takeout and a new crib catalog. As autumn leaves turned the city gold, Tyler started keeping a journal again, pages filling with fears he couldn't voice to Marcus. What if the baby grew up feeling the same isolation he had? What if Marcus's empire eventually pulled him away from midnight feedings and school plays? Marcus noticed the distance and responded the only way he knew how, with action. He cleared a schedule for a weekend in the Hamptons, just the two of them walking the empty beach, waves crashing as Marcus admitted, "I proposed the deal because I was scared you'd wake up one day and realize you deserved someone who didn't come with so much baggage." Tyler stopped, sand cool between his toes, and pulled Marcus into a kiss that tasted of salt air and forgiveness. "I signed because I love you," he whispered, "not the money or the status, just you." For the first time in months, the contract felt less like a business deal and more like the beginning of something unbreakable. Winter arrived with the kind of biting wind that made New York feel both alive and unforgiving. Sarah's growing belly drew more curious glances in public, and Tyler found himself fielding questions from strangers in elevators and coffee shops. "Are you the father?" one woman asked at a prenatal class, her smile polite but eyes searching. Marcus stood taller beside him, answering smoothly, "We both are." Yet Tyler could feel the protective wall his partner was building, the same wall that had helped Marcus survive boardroom battles, but sometimes kept Tyler at arm's length. Late one night, after a long day of revisions, Tyler scrolled through old photos of his estranged parents and wondered if the baby would ever know grandparents who truly accepted them. The first major crisis hit when Marcus's company faced a hostile takeover bid fueled by whispers about his lifestyle choices. Investors pulled out quietly, citing family values, and Marcus spent 3 straight nights in his home office, tie loosened and eyes bloodshot. Tyler brought him coffee at 2 a.m., sitting on the edge of the desk. "We can pause everything if you need to," he offered, but Marcus shook his head fiercely. "This child is our future, not theirs." The next morning, Marcus held a press conference announcing the surrogacy publicly, framing it as a story of love conquering odds, and Tyler watched from the wings with pride swelling in his chest. The media storm followed, supportive headlines mixed with hateful online trolls. Yet something shifted between them in the aftermath. Marcus started coming home earlier, leaving his phone in another room during dinner, and Tyler began reading parenting books aloud, while Marcus rubbed Sarah's feet during visits. Friends rallied too. Their neighbor, a fellow gay dad who had adopted years earlier, hosted a small dinner where stories flowed about sleepless nights and first steps. Tyler laughed until his sides hurt, feeling for the first time that their little circle was expanding into something real. Yet doubt crept in during quiet moments. At a holiday party thrown by Marcus's remaining allies, an old colleague cornered Tyler near the bar. "You know he's doing this for the optics, right? Billionaire heir needs a legacy." The words stung like ice water, and Tyler spent the cab ride home silent, replaying every late meeting and business trip. When they reached the apartment, Marcus sensed the mood immediately. "Whatever he said, it's not true," he insisted, pulling Tyler onto the couch. They talked until dawn, voices raw with truths they had danced around for months. Tyler's fear of being the younger trophy, Marcus's terror of repeating his own father's emotional distance. By sunrise, they fell asleep tangled together, the city waking outside their window, and Tyler woke with a new resolve to trust the man beside him completely. Sarah's 20-week scan brought another wave of joy when they learned they were expecting a boy. Marcus surprised Tyler with a tiny Yankees onesie that evening, the gesture so simple and heartfelt that Tyler cried right there in the kitchen. The following weekend, they drove upstate to a quiet cabin, snow falling softly as they sat by the fire planning the nursery. Marcus sketched layouts on napkins while Tyler read baby name lists, and for those few days the outside world, the prejudice, the contracts, the family silence, faded into background noise. Back in the city, the pace picked up again, doctor appointments and baby registry lists filling their calendar. But Tyler noticed Marcus watching him more closely now, as if memorizing every smile. The growing life inside, Sarah became the thread weaving their separate fears into one shared hope, and Tyler began to believe that maybe, just maybe, they were strong enough to face whatever came next. Spring brought longer days and the first kicks Sarah could feel, shared over video calls that left Tyler grinning for hours afterward. Yet the closer the due date loomed, the more old insecurities resurfaced. Tyler's writing stalled, words refusing to flow, while his mind replayed every argument with Marcus's family. One afternoon, he visited his therapist alone, admitting the fear that he would somehow fail this child the way his own parents had failed him. The therapist's gentle reminder, "You're choosing differently," stayed with him on the subway ride home, where Marcus waited with fresh flowers and takeout from their favorite Thai place. They ate on the balcony, city lights twinkling below, and Tyler finally voiced the worry that had been building. "What if I'm not enough for him?" Marcus set his fork down, eyes steady. "You already are." The misunderstanding that nearly broke them arrived without warning. Marcus's assistant forwarded an email chain accidentally, one where Marcus had discussed securing the bloodline with his lawyers months earlier. Tyler read the words in their bedroom at midnight, heart hammering as the old contract fears roared back. When Marcus walked in from a late meeting, Tyler confronted him with the printed pages, voice shaking. "Is this still about legacy to you?" Marcus's face paled, the billionaire suddenly looking small. "That was before I realized how much you mean to me." The argument stretched into the early hours, words sharp with hurt and exhaustion, until Tyler grabbed his coat and left for a friend's couch. The next 2 days felt endless, texts unanswered, Sarah calling worried from New Jersey. Marcus showed up at the friend's door on the third evening, rain soaking his expensive coat, holding nothing but a single ultrasound photo. "I canceled the bloodline clause weeks ago," he said quietly. "I just want our family, you, me, and him." They talked through the night, tears mixing with apologies, and by morning the contract felt like ancient history. Marcus cleared his entire schedule for a week, the two of them spending lazy days walking Central Park hand in hand, talking about everything from childhood memories to retirement dreams. Sarah's next appointment confirmed the baby was growing perfectly, and the doctor's smile felt like permission to hope again. Tyler began writing again, pages pouring out about chosen families and second chances, while Marcus started therapy himself, learning to voice fears instead of fixing them with money. Their friends noticed the change immediately. The way Marcus now reached for Tyler's hand in public without hesitation, the way Tyler laughed louder at Marcus's terrible dad jokes. The pregnancy entered its final stretch with renewed tenderness. Marcus reading pregnancy books aloud at night, and Tyler massaging Sarah's back during visits. The city bloomed around them, cherry blossoms lining the streets like quiet applause for the love they had fought to keep. Summer heat wrapped New York in a humid embrace as Sarah entered her final month. The nursery stood ready, soft gray walls, a crib Marcus had assembled himself despite 3 failed attempts and 1 trip to YouTube tutorials. Tyler spent afternoons there, folding tiny clothes and imagining the sound of little feet on hardwood floors. Marcus's company stabilized after the public announcement, investors returning with cautious support. But the real victory came when Marcus turned down a major deal that would have required months of travel. "I'm not missing a single day," he told Tyler over breakfast, the decision costing millions, yet earning him the proudest smile Tyler had ever seen. Their bond felt forged in fire now, every shared glance carrying the weight of battles won. The final family confrontation arrived via unexpected visitor, Marcus's father showing up unannounced at the apartment, briefcase in hand. "I've arranged a trust fund," he began, but Marcus cut him off gently. "We don't need your money, Dad. We need your acceptance." The older man stood silent for a long moment, eyes flicking to the ultrasound photos on the fridge, before nodding once and leaving without another word. Tyler watched from the doorway, heart full as Marcus turned and pulled him close. "We did it our way," Marcus whispered, and Tyler believed him completely for the first time. Sarah's water broke 2 weeks early on a humid Thursday afternoon, sending them all racing to the hospital in Marcus's black SUV, Tyler gripping the dashboard while Marcus navigated traffic with surprising calm. Labor lasted 14 hours filled with pacing hallways, bad hospital coffee, and whispered encouragements. When the doctor finally announced it was time, Tyler and Marcus stood on either side of Sarah, each holding one of her hands as she pushed through the final contractions. The first cry pierced the room like sunlight breaking clouds, and Tyler felt tears streaming down his face before he even saw the baby. The nurse placed the squirming bundle on Sarah's chest for a moment, then handed him carefully to Marcus, who looked at Tyler with eyes shining brighter than any boardroom victory. "Meet our son," Marcus said, voice thick. Tyler reached out, touching the tiny fingers that wrapped around his own, and in that instant every doubt, every argument, every sacrifice dissolved into pure, overwhelming love. The hospital room filled with soft morning light as nurses bustled around, checking vitals and offering congratulations. Marcus held their newborn son, named Lucas after Tyler's late grandfather, with the careful reverence of a man who had just witnessed a miracle. Tyler stood beside him, one arm around Marcus's waist, the 3 of them forming a perfect circle that felt more real than any contract ever could. Sarah smiled tiredly from the bed, already talking about her next visit once she recovered, and Tyler felt a surge of gratitude for the woman who had helped make their dream possible. Marcus suggested a quick DNA test for legal paperwork. "Standard procedure," he said, and the doctor nodded, drawing a tiny blood sample before leaving them to bond in peace. Hours later, while Lucas slept in the clear bassinet between their chairs, the doctor returned with results in hand. Marcus opened the envelope casually, expecting the confirmation he had paid top dollar to ensure. His face drained of color as he read the page once, then twice. "This can't be right," he whispered, the paper trembling in his grip. Tyler leaned in, scanning the numbers, and felt the floor tilt beneath him. The test showed Lucas carried Tyler's genetic markers, not Marcus's. "A lab mix-up," the doctor explained gently, or perhaps a backup sample had been used by mistake during the final procedure. Marcus stood abruptly, pacing to the window, the billionaire who commanded empires, now looking utterly lost. "All this time I thought my bloodline." His voice broke, years of family pressure crashing down in one devastating moment. Tyler crossed the room in 3 strides, turning Marcus to face him. "He's ours," he said fiercely. "DNA doesn't change that. You chose me, I chose you, and we chose him." Marcus stared at the sleeping baby, then back at Tyler, the shock slowly giving way to something deeper, understanding. "I was so afraid of losing control," he admitted, voice raw. But looking at him now, I realize I already have everything I need right here. They held each other as the sun climbed higher, tears mixing with quiet laughter, the revelation transforming from crisis into the final piece of their growth. By discharge day, Marcus had called his lawyers to amend every document, ensuring Tyler's name stood equal in every way. They brought Lucas home to a city that suddenly felt kinder, the apartment alive with the soft sounds of new life. Months later, on a bright Saturday in Central Park, Marcus and Tyler pushed the stroller along the same paths where their journey had begun. Lucas gurgled happily at the ducks, tiny hands reaching for the world. Marcus stopped under a blooming tree, pulling Tyler close for a kiss that tasted of fresh air and forever. "Thank you for signing that contract," he murmured against Tyler's lips. "It gave me the family I never knew I needed." Tyler smiled, forehead resting against Marcus's. "We built this together. No contracts required anymore." The three of them continued walking, sunlight warm on their faces, the future stretching wide and bright ahead. True or false? Blood ties matter more than the love we choose to build a family?